Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I am enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. That said, good morning and congratulations on your nomination. If you'd like, we can begin by, if you have any folks with you today you'd like to introduce, and then we can give your witnesses a chance to address the council.
Thank you. This is Christopher LeConte. He's the first justice of the district court. My wife, Andrea Levy, also my law partner, and attorney Nicole Levy, my sister-in-law and partner at Legend Owens.
Thank you for being here today. And I don't know the order you'd prefer to go, but I have Andrea listed first.
It's actually going to be Nicole.
Okay, very well. Attorney, thank you for being here.
For having me.
Please.
It is my privilege to speak on behalf of Pat, as I know, as a nominee today. I met Pat first in 2007 when I was at the District Attorney's Office, and he was a criminal defense attorney. While I was employed as an advocate, Pat was on the proverbial other side of cases. I crossed paths with Pat often. He was and continues to be professional, candid, and caring to everybody we know. As defense counsel, he always stood out to me as someone who was kind and courteous to his clients, opposing counsel, the advocates, and court staff. I spent many hours in courtrooms sitting with victims and witnesses and watching case after case, which put me in a very unique position to be able to watch Pat as a lawyer. He was always prepared, he was respectful, and it was clear that he genuinely enjoyed practicing law, which I think is rare for someone after so many years. His advocacy and his empathy for his clients was admirable then, and it continues to be so today. After I attended law school, Pat was a sympathetic ear, a source of information, and never ever too busy to help me. The care and compassion I had seen him epitomize in the courthouse was not simply part of the job, but it was who he was as a person. This became apparent as I turned to him time and time again for professional advice. I have not worked directly with Pat or against him in many years. However, about 8 or so years ago, Pat expanded his expertise into family law cases. Not only was this impressive to me after many years of wisely avoiding these cases, but it brought us back to having some intersecting areas of practice. I was very excited to finally feel like I could teach him a thing or two. That lasted maybe a week or so. With his expertise and years of experience, I think it becomes very easy for many attorneys to just coast, but that isn't Pat. He learned a new area of law and he excelled at it. He demonstrates a unique ability to see cases from all angles, whether district court or probate court, that to this day, he continues to be someone that I turn to for advice and talk through legal issues with. He can boil down facts quickly, parse out the legal issue, and what maybe to me felt like a tangled web suddenly becomes very clear and workable. It came as no surprise to me that he was nominated to be a judge. His pragmatic approach in handling cases is almost wasted on clients, almost. It is amazing to me that he never seems to tire of talking about new cases and with all that being said, to me, Pat's demeanor that truly stands out. He has an uncanny ability to compartmentalize tough cases and tough situations. There never appears to be residual frustration, and he always has fresh eyes for what's next, whether it's a new client or an appeal. I was truly honored when Pat asked me to speak on his behalf, and I sincerely hope his nomination is confirmed. He would be an asset to any court. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, if the council has any comments or questions for you.
Well, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
I would call Christopher LeConte.
Thank you, attorney. Judge, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It is my honor and privilege, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Thank you. It's different when you're not in the hot seat. It's a different.
Remember, you were on the hot seat. Sorry about that, Judge.
It's my pleasure to speak on Pat's behalf. I will just say this, there is no substitute for experience. And I've known Pat, we were both young DAs together, at least a lot younger than we are now. And we worked together in the Fitchburg District Court. Over the years, we have experienced many, many things together. When I left the DA's office, Pat left a few years later, we became partners in a law practice that was very successful. And we were partners, I think, for about a decade. And I will say this, that Pat's experience, not only as an advocate, but as a human being, he understands everyone's role in the courtroom and in the courthouse. He expresses great empathy and respect for the roles of the defense lawyer, of the prosecutor, and he understands the trauma that oftentimes is experienced by witnesses or victims of cases. He is experienced in the probate and family court as well as the juvenile court, and oftentimes those issues intersect with the issues that we deal with every single day in the district court. Pat is familiar with issues of addiction and mental health issues, which again is the things that we deal with every single day in the district court. And again, not to repeat myself, but there is no substitute for experience. He understands the struggles of a busy practitioner. He understands the struggles of a busy prosecutor, and he understands the responsibilities of a busy district court. And I'm confident that if confirmed, that Pat would be an amazing addition. I love working with him as a prosecutor. I love working with him as a partner. And I look forward to working with him, if confirmed, as a colleague in the district court.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Kennedy.
First of all, Judge, it's great to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. You're doing a great job out there. I hear nothing but great things.
Thank you very so much.
It's been a while since I got out to Fitchburg. I'm looking for business out there, but it's just not coming in.
A lot of people are looking for business.
Maybe if we get rid of him, I'll get some business out there. So one thing you said would really struck me was his trial experience. And I noticed on his application that I think he put in, he did something like 173 jury trials to verdict. We're not getting a lot of that these days with people who come in here. You know, a lot of people come in and they say, you know, I've done 20 jury trials in my career, 20 trials combined bench and jury trials, and they consider themselves seasoned lawyers having done that. I think I did 20 jury trials my first week in the DA's office, like everybody else. How important do you think that is for somebody going on the district court?
I think it's tremendously important. I think part of the responsibility of a district court judge is to manage a busy docket, and he can certainly separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of what needs to go to trial and what order those trials need to happen. He also we've all experienced the first time jitters in terms of when we were new lawyers and when we became seasoned lawyers and all the things that can happen at trial. And I think that Pat has experienced everything you can experience in the district court. And certainly he would, his experience as a district court practitioner and his experience in terms of the superior court trial work that he's done will absolutely help him keep things in perspective. Pat has always been available, as Nicole had testified to, and I really think that he will be an asset to the bar, and that he would be available to members of the bar who would come over him and ask him for feedback. I think that the feedback that Pat would provide would be invaluable.
What would you think if like somebody was sitting here that, you know, had been a lawyer for decades and only did 2 trials?
Well, I'll just say that I think everyone's experience is unique. I think that it's very fortunate the experience that Pat has and that I have, because back in those days when we were in Fitchburg, we'd be crawling all over. We'd be trying to jump in front of each other to try to get our trial to go first.
Sure, right.
And it's funny, you know, sometimes the attitude's a little bit different because everybody's taking a step back, and Pat was always the person who stepped forward.
I only have one problem with him. He told me when he was in the DA's office, he hung around with John Kennedy and Pellegrini. So I, you know, had a miscreant.
We miss John, and we wish John well. He's a good man.
We're gonna get somebody good in there. Pellegrini, he's got his birthday's in March. He's a month older than me, so he's got about 2 years and
Yeah.
8 months left.
It's amazing how quick it
How
goes.
fast, it's that day, he's not getting recalled.
Yeah, I think he's looking forward to, other things, so we'll see.
We'll see.
This is it's amazing how fast it goes. And, I know Pat will appreciate, what a special thing it is to be a district court judge, and he will never, ever.
You know how many years I've known Ellen, right?
Yes.
61. Kindergarten.
He's a good.
All right, so thank you, Jeff. It was great to see you. I hope to get out to Fitchburg again and see you.
Thank you so much.
Say hello to the clerk for me.
I will, absolutely. They keep me in line.
Somebody has. to.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you.
Attorney Burke.
I'll just give you my personal say. First of all, I want to thank everyone.
About the opposition, there was a line of it.
We'll get to that later.
I want to start by thanking Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll for the nomination. I guess additionally, I need to thank Paige Scott Reed and Jessica Derek Kesselheim for their guidance and wisdom in the process. And I also want to thank Sonia Altamirano and her team for shepherding me through the process. I also want to thank my witnesses, my sister-in-law, Attorney Nicole Levy, my former law partner, Judge Chris Lecanto, and my wife and partner, Attorney Andrea Levy, who is my biggest supporter and advocate. I know that I've spoken with both of you who are present in chambers right now about my qualifications and my resume, but I'd like to also tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I grew up in Lancaster. I lived my whole life in Massachusetts. I was raised in Lancaster with both my parents and my two younger sisters, who are a year younger than me and 2 years younger, Katie and Aaron. My father was an elementary school teacher and later a school principal. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a period of time. And then when we got a little bit older, she went back to work and worked as a customer service rep for a local cable company at the time. Our neighborhood was a rural, middle-class neighborhood. I attended Neshoba Regional High School, and my parents continued to reside in the same town, in the same house that I grew up in. The one thing that was drilled into to all of the kids was that we were going to college. It was not an option. My father and his father graduated from Notre Dame. So in the fall of my childhood, on every Saturday, it was football day with Notre Dame. In any event, my dad was an educator. It was important. So that was college. After college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up taking a job with the Department of Corrections, supervising as a correctional program officer, which was basically a CO, but we did not wear uniforms, but we were essentially just counting heads and taking care of the individuals that were there. In working there, I met many different incarcerated individuals, many different stories and backgrounds. I was very aware of how the intricacies of each individual's life situations had made their outcome better or worse. I really began to understand that each person's situation and their ability to access justice was dependent on so many factors. Those factors could be financial, race-based, access to an attorney, mental health issues, and so much more. It was at this time that I really began to consider what role I could play in the legal system other than what I was doing. I had empathy for these people. I saw them every day. I got to know the folks that were in there. They had, tragic situations and, some self-imposed, but most of them involving mental health issues, substance abuse issues that had caused them to be incarcerated. Working in a prison like that it's not an uplifting job. It's difficult. And then after about 18 months, I determined that I was not going to be able to do that as a career. It was on a random Tuesday night shift where I was working overnight. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and my friend John Donahue, his father was Jim Donahue, the Superior Court judge in Worcester. We were sitting there at 3 o'clock, we're miserable, drinking coffee. I said to Johnny, I can't do this the rest of my life. He said, me either, I just got into Suffolk Law School. I said, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. And within 6 months, both of us were in law school. And I went to law school while I was working full-time after prison. So, my days and weeks were pretty miserable for 4 years. We're talking with travel, school, and studying, and then a 40-hour work week. It was a real grind, but it was, after all, it became really worth it to me. I would then at some point join the DA's office, and during that time, I prosecuted cases in the district court. I tried 173 jury trials just as a prosecutor in the district court. And I've tried probably 150 cases as a criminal defense attorney, civil attorney. Not a lot of civil stuff, but I did work for an insurance defense firm, so I do have a little bit of a civil background. I tried a couple of civil cases there. I've tried a few contract cases over the years, one in Superior, and I think 2 or 3 in the district court. So I didn't do a lot of civil practice, but I did have a background, and I have tried cases. In any event, one thing that I have learned in my career is empathy. If appointed, I see how important empathy is as a role of the judge. As a judge, you're making incredibly tough decisions for many people, a majority of whom have had tough lives and situations. That I had personally not dealt with any of that adversity, just by virtue of where I grew up and who I am. And I understand that. If I am appointed, I know that I will come to the court humbly, always listening carefully to both sides and reflect on the information that I'm given to make what I believe would be a fair and just decision. I understand that the parties that are here are there because they need a decision to be made. And my role as that person is crucial in helping them make a very impactful decision in lives. I also believe that the entire courthouse staff plays just as important a role if appointed. From the clerks to the court officers to staff, we are all part of the justice system, and we have to work together to ensure that every litigant gets a fair day in court. The people who come into the district court come here to resolve complicated issues and things that matter to them, their families, and their loved ones, and the community. I'm humbled by the opportunity to contribute to the court that has the ability to help so many people in so many ways. If I have the honor of being confirmed, I can assure you that I will approach each case that comes before me with an open mind. I will remember the lessons that I have learned from representing individuals and working with victims and witnesses. I will remember that a case is not just a docket number, it is a story about people, and I will never lose sight of the humanity that is part of every case. And I thank you in advance for your thoughtful consideration of my nomination.
Thank you, Attorney Burke. It's a celebratory mood in the State House today.
It's not for me though, but really.
It is birthday for you.
I think it bodes well for you. That having been said, we'll give the council an opportunity to ask you any questions, and we'll start to the counselor to my right, Counselor Tamisha Silva.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations on your nomination, Attorney Burke.
Thank you so much.
I have 3 questions for you. The first one would be, what role do you believe a judge plays in the community?
Thank you for that question. The role that a judge plays in the community is one, especially in the district court, is the face of the rule of law in your community. Okay, so when anybody comes in there, you know, you have to remind yourself when you're a practitioner and that's in court all the time, when you have your client next to you, that's an important day for them. That's a trauma, it's a stress that to me, I'm just doing my regular, that's my business. But you have to remind yourself that that is important, that you recognize that it's it's a serious thing for them. And I think that it would be important to recognize that when you come through there, you're going to get a fair shot every time you come through that door. In a dignified, in a way that shows empathy and recognizes that is their first impression of the rule of law. You know, that will stick with them.
Great answer, because the reason why I asked that question is because you were a prosecutor and you're also a defense attorney. So that gives you an opportunity to work with both sides. And that will give you an understanding, and they're going through a traumatic experience and what to expect. So that was the reasoning for my question. The second question is, what does due process mean?
Due process, it means everything. It's just, it's what you're getting when you go through the door, especially, there's so much attention now. But what you want to focus on is giving everybody a hearing so that they can have their rights preserved, protected, and somebody to watch over whether that has or has not been done.
My last question for you would be, what do you consider your most significant professional accomplishment, and how does it relate to your candidacy for a judgeship?
My most professional accomplishment?
To be personal.
Thank you for that question. a hard one.
These were some good questions.
Yeah, I had a lawyer in his trial that stumped.
We can recess for a week.
We can sing happy birthday.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that, can't point to one specific thing. I've done, the body of my work has been trial work. I've had very difficult cases over the years that I've had real concern about. And anybody in criminal defense work knows that the biggest pressure is when you have a client that's truly innocent. There's nothing that keeps you up at night more than that, opposed to saying that you're just making the government come to its proofs when you have a client that you know is truly innocent. I can remember one incident where it was an aggravated rape case, and it was a complete fallacy. It was a marital rape where they were in the middle of a divorce and they had relations, and I had my client, the male, had custody of the 5-year-old. He had been granted custody, so he did not want to lose that child. Plus, it was a Superior Court case, and the case was terrible. It was an 8-minute verdict. We're not guilty. So that was just one instance of a jury verdict that I really tried. But I've represented people for Rule 8 appointed cases, difficult cases. I went out to Springfield a lot because they were just overwhelmed with caseload. And Christina Murphy of the Bar Advocates, we were, I know that you remember, she would ask me to take cases sometimes because they were overloaded. Sometimes she would give me cases where somebody had 4 lawyers before, and I'd be the 5th lawyer in. So she would rely on me in many instances to take the difficult clients, the ones that have fired 4 lawyers, and sometimes they needed a trial, so we would give them a trial. And myself and Judge Lecanto, when we were partners, he had we both shared the same type of approach to those type of cases. If you want a trial, let's go tell that story. And we would try the cases. Sometimes they had to be tried. They wanted a trial. They wanted motions filed. We just would jealously represent them and go to trial on their cases. So I think that I'm most proud of my trial work. When I became a lawyer, it's like, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be the trial lawyer, and I ended up doing that. The reason that I made this application, I think it'd be a nice way to end my career. Cap it off with again, public service and using the experience that I've had to make rulings and do the best job that I can.
Thank you. And I also wanted you to talk personal accomplishment about the organization, the charitable organization that you with a little help from our friends. I want you to talk about that a little bit. I think that's a great personal accomplishment because you're leaders of the community, and that shows the human side of you. Oftentimes people who go into court, they see a judge, they can get very intimidated. And I think that's a great attribute for people to know what you also do for people who have been impacted by crime in the community.
So really, I became involved in the charity work because of my wonderful wife. She, there was a charity that was started by Worcester lawyers for our advocates. Several of the judges, was one of the ones who was part of this, and we have inherited for the last 3 years. And it is a toy drive and clothing drive for shelters in central Massachusetts. There is an Orchard Hill shelter in Leominster that is a homeless women with children in addiction shelter. There is a North Star, which is, my wife is on the board of directors there also, which is another homeless shelter. And there's CHL is the other one that has much more, that has about 35 families. And so through an Amazon gift list, we put this list out, and people donate from the legal community and the local community. And every year we have probably 500 to 600 presents that we receive to our house. We process them. My wife Andrea does the wrapping on it. I lug the boxes around and do that to do that kind of thing. And so for these families, it's incredibly difficult for me, who was raised in a middle-class background, but I didn't have to worry about food or clothing. And it is this very sad thing where someone wants socks for their 4-year-old, you know, and can't afford extra socks. So what we do is we put together these lists. Kids each probably gets, you know, $400 or $500, $600 worth of stuff that they didn't have before. So a lot of times that's going to be their clothes for the year, you know. So it's they tell us they want sneakers, or they want, some people want games or game chairs and stuff. In any event, what we do then is we deliver those presents already wrapped. We used to do it where we would have a Chris would dress up in the Santa Claus costume. And we bring these and we
Yeah, there's a picture.
yeah. And so that we used to pass them out though, but then we determined that it would be nicer if the parents got these, and so we made places where we'd meet the parents. The 27-foot U-Haul truck I'd rent, and we'd load, the thing would be completely full with bicycles and all of these things. And we'd give it to the parents, so the parents could present these as theirs. So I think it actually works best. We also, you know, once a month we go to, we make 20 bag lunches for a unhoused people's shelter in Waltham. So that they come in for lunch and they have something to do, to eat. And also we formally go to the Somerville Backpack program, which was a program where you give lunches. I think it 50 lunches. We used to do that once a month. That program has been taken over by someone else, so we don't do that one anymore. But that was one that we did once a month too. And those were important because a lot of times, this never happened to me, but a lot of people don't have food on the weekends because they don't have enough money. And that's not right for kids, little kids, to not, you know, be fed. It's just, so that's just something where we're trying to help out. I think it's good for the soul.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for taking the time out to speak to me so that I can know more about your background and what makes you a great candidate to become an associate justice judge.
Wonderful talking to you yesterday.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Dolan.
Thank you. Congratulations on your nomination. And I appreciate your taking the time to speak with me as well. I also really appreciate the answer you just gave, and not like this, but I want to quote Pope Leo, who said, "We need to listen to the poor. They are a treasure of humanity," and they are. And the fact that you have and that you've worked with them to support them says a tremendous deal about you. It tells me that you have the qualities that we need to see in a judge. And also to say, of course, I very much appreciate your work with the Worcester County Bar, now more than ever. But since Counselor Civil asked you a difficult question, I'm going to ask you an easy one by starting off with talking about the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
So you worked for the Department of Corrections, you were a corrections officer.
I was.
So when we spoke, I told you that, you know, as we've seen, there have been a number of cases in recent years where corrections officers have been charged with misconduct. Some of those charges have turned out to be justified. So my concern was whether you would recuse yourself in cases involving the Department of Corrections. And can you tell us what your answer is to that?
I would not recuse myself from cases with the Department of Corrections. I worked for them a long time ago, and I wasn't very fond of working there in the first place. But criminal conduct is criminal conduct. You cannot lay hands on someone who's incarcerated. I can remember being taught that at the Correction Academy, you know, just as a matter of what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And abuse of a prisoner is a crime and should never happen. And I would have no problem imposing discipline or judgment on someone who was, you know, abuse of someone who was retired.
In a similar vein, and we didn't have a chance to talk about this the other day, I wanted to ask you about Commonwealth versus Long, which is, I think, one of the most important decisions to come out of the SJC in recent years. It does have the power to manage racial profile in Massachusetts. And yet, since it was decided, last time I checked, which wasn't that long ago, only 3 long motions have been held. Have you argued long motions? What is your view on it?
I have never argued a long motion. I remember the case because I think it was attorney Mike Ehrlich who may have brought the case. I know that I looked the case up just the other day to refresh my memory on it because I have not done one of those motions. And I remember the trooper because that trooper was notorious for, you know, that type of behavior.
Racial profiling.
Yes.
Yes.
And that whole area has always been the same thing. I have had cases in that area and at the I-84 interchange and Mass Pike, and there just happen to be a lot of cases there. I haven't seen, and this is my idea about this, I haven't seen a long motion run before because I don't believe that people have the information that they need. And so I don't know if that could be pursued through Rule 17 motion for those type of statistics. And I just haven't encountered it because it hasn't been relevant to a case that I've had.
Beauty of long was that the SJC said, you don't need a complicated statistical analysis, you know, we'll just take whatever you've got.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that just as you are willing to be fair and hold corrections officers accountable when required, that if you are hearing long motions, that you are ready, willing, and able to
I would
find racial profiling.
rule consistent with the long decision, and I would, anybody that would file that to me, I would listen to it and we would proceed on a long motion. I don't think there's any first thing that happen before you can file that. I think you can just file it.
That's the beauty of it. You can
That's what I think.
just go ahead and file it.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you one more question, which is, you had mentioned earlier being the fourth lawyer on a case. And we talked about this. I've been the fourth lawyer on a case. I'm sure there are other counselors here who've been fourth lawyers on the case. And oftentimes defendants are what I have come to see as and describe as self-rehabilitated.
Yeah.
We want them to get a job. We want them to have a home. We want them to repair their relationships. And they're actually doing all those things by the time they either plead it out or it gets to trial and they're found guilty. And then, you know, we have to do, you know, judges are limited in what they can do. Could you just share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's quite unfortunate, and that happens all the time. You know, that somebody gets arrested and then figures it out that they don't want to be in this life, but then they're stuck in the biggest difficulty with that is mandatory sentencing. Because the prosecutor holds that key, and so you really have to the prosecutor as to, you know, your client's rehabilitation, things that he or she has done to rehabilitate. And so, you know, although I am very aware of it, you know, you're somewhat limited from making the decision just because of mandatory sentencing, you know.
We did talk the other day about lobby conferences and we were lamenting.
Yeah.
We used to have off the record lobby conferences used to be routine and you get a lot done. But you did talk about what you can still do with on the record lobby
You can
conferences.
do,
Share.
yeah, you can go and do a bench conference. Judge LeConte does them quite frequently, and it's basically, sometimes you have a difficult client and you want to figure out how to resolve their issue. And so I think when a judge gets hands-on, like at a pretrial, like, I don't know if anybody practices any probate family law, but a lot of times a judge in a probate family law will give you input. I think that could happen at a pretrial conference where we could say, what, you know, what is going on here? How can we resolve this? Is something that cannot be resolved? You know, and, you know, a lot of times the defense counsel would say, this is what I'd like to do. Can you do that to the judge? And the judge should be in a position, he's not prejudging, she's not prejudging, but she's assessing the case for strengths, weaknesses, and what could happen or couldn't happen. And you give them some type of a preview. Well, if this happens, this might, you know, if these are the facts, this is what I might do. I think that's helpful. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it's not done as much as it used to be.
Period. Thank you. Very much appreciate all your answers.
Very nice meeting you.
Yes, well, no further questions.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Iannella.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, your counsel, strong supporter of you. Once your name was submitted by the governor's office, counsel DePaulo called me to say, this is the real deal. I want you to know that. Really, couple of quick questions. I had 173 jury trials for verdict. I'm just curious. I used to be in court every day, this court, that, but when do people this, like, now at 82, 92.
I,
Oh, you're right, what do you think, can I get 100 by Christmas, so I
remember those old, desk blotters with the calendar? I had one of those for 3.5, I had, each successive year, I was 3.5 years in Fitchburg. And I used to write in the corner on each date, OUI first, Attorney Lenny Staples, not guilty. Number one, and then the next Tuesday might be Steve Panagiotis, OUI first, you try a ton of OUIs when you're in district court. And assault and battery, and I just did that, and I did it because there was another lawyer who had done it before me, named Mike Ball. He was a DA in Worcester for 1 million years, and he did it, and he was up in that court, so I started doing it. And then when I left the DA's office, I didn't really keep up with it, because I didn't have any of those desk blotters. But that's how I did it.
The first thing I was gonna put on that law, which you didn't mention, maybe you did it, Judge so-and-so.
Yeah.
How about the judge? I mean, you could have the same facts, and
Yeah.
the same facts from another, not guilty,
Yeah.
guilty.
Yeah.
That to me is the most important thing.
Yeah,
Judge Sharpen, what's your position on that?
well, I mean, I know it does happen, I understand that it happens, it's not.
Guilty.
Yeah, I mean, you understand, something. It's kind of harder to do that nowadays than it was. I don't think it's ethical.
Well, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second.
But
You just brought me up.
First of all, again, I've been in the council a few years. So when you watch the tapes, you probably didn't go back far enough. We had, I think, like 3 members of the SJC. They all came to a conclusion in front of all of us. Well, I think Kennedy was the only one. It is malpractice.
Yeah, not to.
You do not judge shop, so that's a lot different than unethical.
Yeah, no,
So,
yeah, but what I'm saying is,
which makes sense, hey, listen, I wanna go for you or you.
well, and then also you're, as a judge, you develop a reputation. And so, if it's a judge that you can waive a jury in front of or not, so you certainly judge shop or jury shop. So if you say, I know this judge is not going to be a favorable one, I need to have a jury for.
So I see the next time, and I ask that question, you go, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Other than me, it's fine.
I determine if someone, once they become a judge, is a good judge. One of the factors that I look at. If I talk to people in the community, lawyers, and they say, how's Judge so-and-so, would you ever go jury word, forget it. Well, I come to the conclusion, rightfully or wrongfully, that judge is not fair. I don't expect the judge to be guilty all the time, I'm not guilty all the time. So, down the road, assuming you get confirmed here, I do occasionally ask people, hey, how's Judge so-and-so, would you ever go jury word, forget it, So think about that, and people are not going, I'm sure you've gone in front of judges, and the judges have the reputation, well, this is one to go jury way. I hope that people will think of you as this guy, you can go to jury way.
It would be, because I can tell you, I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and I know the burden of proof as well as anybody that I know. And I know what reasonable doubt is. And reasonable doubt is the standard that you're going by, and that's it.
Thank you, yes, so Kennedy, my last point.
Yep.
Not a question. Yeah, you got a nice resume, but to me. Is that question about the charities, that to me, you can throw this whole resume away. That tells me about you and your wife. I know a lot of people, I'm older than you, this is special. This is something both of you should be really, really proud of. These are special people who do something like that. And you probably don't know, but I don't know anyone who does it. You give something here, you give something here, but to organize, the tough part is the rap. I can rap. Can you rap?
Not rap,
I'll
that's why
teach you
she's on.
someday. So your wife does all the rapping.
All the rapping.
You gotta organize it, it's like almost like a wedding, you put your list up there, my hand file, this one, now mine, this one. What a job, really, that's amazing.
My entire house in November and December is completely filled with Christmas presents.
Yeah, that tells me about the tour, and I'm really, really happy they'll have the opportunity to vote, because that to me was the best part of your resume. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kennedy.
You have a lot of trial experience, and I appreciate that. You know, I give that advice to young lawyers and DAs to keep track of their trials, because you can't reconstruct it later. I say it to them all the time. I say, just keep a list of the trial, the name of the case, the docket, the opposing counsel, and the judge. Just keep a running list. You know, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. We don't care about that. Just keep that running list, because 20 years from now, when you're sitting in your seat and somebody asks that question, you know, the only one will be here then, still then, will be INL. But, so, yeah, why you lie? He's been here 40 years. You think he's going anywhere? So anyway, so I think that's really important trial experience. And, you know, I've been doing this for 42 years and pretty much been in court every day of my working career, including in front of Judge Lecanto a few times. And a little mad at me. I was a little late, but I had to drive all the way to Fitchburg, but what are you gonna do? How important do you think trial experience is for a judge?
Well, I think it's the most important for a district court judge, because you do, there's
What about Superior Court judge?
Superior Court judge, obviously, it would be also, but for a district court judge, I think, you know, you're gonna be doing a lot more trial work. There's just more trials in there. And one thing I do know in terms of my, the laws that I really know are the evidence laws. The rules of evidence are what I know just from osmosis, by just being a trial lawyer.
How would you think I should vote on somebody who's sitting there, who did it for 30 years and only had 1 or 2 trials?
You know, I don't know. I suppose it has to be on a case-by-case basis for determining whether or not.
Would certainly, you'd look upon that as a weak spot in their resume, right?
Well, I think I would if another thing is too, I probably wouldn't hire a lawyer that only had 1 trial if I needed a trial. So, I mean, you can look at it from the same aspect, but judges do different things than trial lawyers too. And I don't begrudge somebody who has a different type of career than I've had.
Okay, so you know what's going on with the bar advocates?
Do.
Yeah. How's it going out in Worcester County with them?
Well, my understanding.
So far, it's been 1 day.
Yeah, it's only been 1 day. I haven't been in court. I've been in Boston, in the State House.
I probably should have gave that to Judge Lecanto, that question, but
He probably could.
I'm a big supporter of their cause. I think that they absolutely positively do deserve a raise. How do you feel about that?
I definitely do. I mean, the reason I stopped doing bar advocate work, I just needed to make more money. And, you know, I was taking superior cases with serious.
And that's it. That's one of the points that I keep making. You're not getting experienced lawyers in there doing it. I never did bar advocate work, but what it used to be is good lawyers would supplement their practice with some bar advocate work. It wasn't, they didn't earn a living doing it. Nowadays, you're getting people that are earning a living doing exclusively that. And I'm not suggesting that there aren't good lawyers that do that. There are many, many, many good lawyers that I have a lot of respect for that do that. But you're not necessarily getting the best and the brightest because you're not paying them. Right? You know, you get a lot more trial lawyers in there doing it if they made more money that could mentor the younger lawyers, less experienced ones. And that's what I think is part of what has disappeared with that. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think that the bar advocates are underpaid. They
Mostly underpaid.
Mostly underpaid. And having done Rule 8 work, you know, you get, I think when I was doing Rule 8, it was $62 an hour to deal with an aggravated rape that might be a case where if convicted, a guy could get 20 years. You know, those are the serious cases, and they should be paid for the work that they do. And quite frankly, there's a huge need for court-appointed lawyers. There's a lot of people who don't have any money. And
if you doubled their salary, they'd still be underpaid.
They'd still be underpaid. But I mean, the point is, you're going to lose lawyers if you don't pay them something when you can go to the probate court and make $400 an hour.
We're not losing lawyers.
That's
Every day. They're dropping out of the program.
And that is what's happening. They should be paid.
There used to be a waiting list to get on the bar advocate list.
I remember when there was a waiting list to get on the bar advocate list. Because it's such good experience.
Right. Anyway, Halloweeny and Kennedy aside, some other folks have reached out to me from Worcester County. My friend Carmine Simonelli, a very good friend from Westboro.
Lovely guy.
I've known for about 40 years.
He's a good friend of ours.
Great guy. And of course, your counsel, who's a very big supporter, no question about it. We've had some discussion about, Councilor DiPaolo filing a motion to suspend the rules to potentially vote on you today. If he brings that motion, I'm absolutely gonna support it. And I hope, about, an hour and 14 minutes from now, that I can vote favorably on your nomination.
Thank you so much, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor, I know you have
just forgot
something you
one
want to add.
thing, and my good friend Terry Kennedy forgot it as well.
Unbelievable.
Our dear friend, probably one of my top 3 favorite counselors, Dennis McMahon.
I was gonna say, Dennis.
I forgot that too.
I
I
built
was gonna
up.
say,
You're absolutely right. We had a conversation about that.
Big support.
Dennis McManus, well, when we started in the.
Good supporter, good friend.
When we went to the DA in Fitchburg, and when I went there, Chris behind me and Dennis were both assistant DAs in that building with me when we started. So I've known Dennis for as long as I've been a lawyer. He's a great guy.
Yeah, and I just want to.
Great clerk.
Request of Council Kennedy, if your council brings up that motion, I'll be 100% support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor.
Dennis McManus called me as well,
Okay.
raved about it.
Well,
Yes, I was going to say that, so Kennedy for reminding us, yes.
That's nice.
No, I forgot.
You remember people, anyway.
Well, I hope Superior Court is still running in Worcester with Dennis on the phone all day. These phone calls. You know, we've heard today what I hear from all the attorneys in Central Mass. Your experience, your humility, your empathy. I think having worked in DOC, I think having worked in the DA's office, the bar advocate roles, you've seen everything that comes through the district court. I have a lot of confidence in your temperament. You're not someone who's intimidating. You're someone, as I said, who demonstrates humility. And, you know, when Counselor Dolan was talking about Long and talking about potentially facing difficult decisions, I'm also confident that you're gonna do that too. And I'd be remiss not to mention, I feel like, because I hear about it so often, your witness today, Judge Lecanto. I know people in the bar community feel like he did a great thing in making a difficult decision regarding wiretapping in the last year. So carrying on that tradition is great. And most of all, it's your day, but I do want to thank our recently departed Chief Legal Counsel, Paige Scott Reed, our Deputy Legal Counsel, Derek Kesselheim, our new legal counsel, because we've been, you know, rattling for a long time to get Central Mass nominees before us. We have 2 outstanding ones today, and I'm really grateful for that partnership with the administration, making sure that happens so that folks truly know our community, and also so folks in Central and Western Mass know that this is definitely a path available to all of us across the Commonwealth. You don't have to be within 128. I usually say 495, but Westboro is dangerously close, so I'm gonna say 128. And with that, I look forward to supporting your nomination when it comes before the council for the vote. And if there's no other comments, I close this hearing.
Sounds good. The wife is the star.
Unfortunately.
And I'm going to begin by reading a letter from the governor to the council into the record. Dear councilors, I am pleased to nominate Edward N. Karcasinas to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I am enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. And with that, we are going to begin with the nominee. If you have any folks who join you today you'd like to introduce, and then we'll move on to any folks who are going to speak on your behalf.
Thank you, Councilor DiPaolo. At first, I'd like just to introduce, starting from my left, my son, Evan Karcasinas. My son, Silas Hallworm.
Morning.
My wife, Julianne. My witness, Honorable Maura McCarthy from the Court, and Jennifer Colaflores from the Committee for Public Counsel Services.
And according to my list, I have Judge McCarthy offering statements first. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Judge, if you'd like to join us,
Okay.
that would be perfect. Most prefer to sit, but you're welcome to stand if you like.
I sit.
That sounds comfortable to me. Yes.
Members of the Governor's Council and Mr. Chair, my name is Maura McCarthy, and I have the privilege of serving in the East Brookfield District Court as their presiding justice. I'm here to offer my full support for the nominee, Edward N. Karcasinas Jr., Eddie, for the position of District Court in the Commonwealth. I've known and worked with Ed since 1995, when we started as new prosecutors in Worcester County. Throughout that time, I observed firsthand the qualities that make Eddie an exceptional candidate for the district court. Ed possesses a calm and kind temperament. His high intellect is self-deprecating, respectful, thoughtful, deliberate, and funny. Qualities that are not only admirable, but essential for a judge sitting in the court. Eddie has spent his entire career on the front lines of the Worcester County courts, but his heart is in the district court. He knows this court intimately, not from distance or theoretical perspective, but from hands-on daily experience. He understands and relishes the fast-paced, heavy caseload and the wide range of human circumstances that bring one to the district court. He possesses a deep knowledge of the criminal and civil law, coupled with a genuine respect for all parties involved. In all of the cases that I have worked with and observed Eddie, he has never wavered in his fidelity to the law and ethical standards. He has approached his role as a prosecutor with balance, fairness, and discretion. Ed is firm when necessary, but never harsh. He understands the critical difference between seeking justice and simply seeking punishment. This integrity and benevolence has earned him the respect of the courthouse users. Ed K. is deeply committed to education, mentorship, and the good of the Worcester County community. He consistently gives his time to mentor young lawyers, speak at schools, and encourage students of all ages to become part of the legal system. He is a teacher, a guide, a role model, volunteer, and friend that works quietly, often without recognition and sympathy. In sum, Ed embodies the intellect, values, experience, character, and common sense that one would want in a district court judge. The Commonwealth we serve would benefit from and be fortunate to have Edward N. Karcasinas Jr. in the district court. And I ask you to support and confirm his nomination. And I thank you for your time and kind consideration.
Thank you for your comments, Judge. Before you leave, does it do any, yes? There's a grilling to come.
Hey, ready.
Are there any counselors who have questions for Judge McCarthy? No. Yes, counselor. I knew it. I knew there would be.
Just one, it's a new question.
Okay.
You know, more and more, I'm coming to the conclusion that judges who have lawyers ask for jury waived trials, that tells me something about the judge. Is that something that happens frequently, infrequently? For people who come before you, excuse me, one second.
Sure.
Because some judges, nobody wants to go in front of that judge, because you have no shot to get them not guilty. And I think a fair judge gets a decent amount of people who want to go jury way, and obviously there's some who don't want a jury.
Counselor Ianella, I believe that the fidelity is to the law. And I believe that I call it as I see them, case by case. And if one wants to exercise their constitutional right to be tried by a judge, they should, and they should be able to go to a forum where they believe that they're going to be treated fairly. And the person behind, in that lofty seat is going to listen to the evidence, apply the law, and be fair. And if one isn't fair, they shouldn't be doing that job, in my humble opinion.
I like the answer, but with all due respect, in reality, it doesn't happen. I mean, hold on. Every single case, every judge doesn't act exactly the way the other one. Just take the United States Supreme Court, 6-3, 5-4, these are all educated people, they all believe they do, you know.
Except for Thomas, I'm sorry.
They're all doing what you just said, but in reality, this is something that people do in front of you or very frequently.
I like to say that I am a person that is willing to take a jury waived trial.
We have no option, yeah.
In my humble opinion, I guess you do have an option. You can decline to take the case. You can send it to another courtroom.
And the reason I said that, a nominee was coming up, he says, oh, this person is great, great, great. But I said, you know, my opinion of this person, so difficult to get him, I don't do any court work anymore, I'm a business, really. So difficult to get a not guilty, does not know how to say those words. Great person, and I'm sure that person will give the same answer that you give. So I said to the nominee who's coming out, like, how often does so-and-so have jury waived cases? Well, almost never. You said enough. But that will tell me something about what a judge is like, just my personal opinion. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kennedy, please.
Judge, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
When I first started on the council 14 years ago, the person sitting next to me, Clerk Casey, all I kept hearing from her was your name over and over and over. Maura McCarthy, Maura McCarthy, Maura McCarthy, till you finally got in that hot seat. I don't know if you see her anymore when you're out there, but.
I do have the pleasure to talk with her on occasion. I don't see her as much as we like, and we were privileged to do a training together that she asked me to do.
But she was a big supporter of yours. And she was a big believer in jury waived trials when she was practicing, so I think Judge McCarthy probably is pretty good at those. I don't get out to you at Eastbrook. You're in
wish you would.
Eastbrook, right?
Yes.
I think I've only been out there a couple of times way back when Judge Abdullah Senior was there.
That's right.
He was tough. He was a tough judge. But it was good to see you.
It's nice to see you, Counselor. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Judge. We always hear great things about you in East Brookfield. East Brookfield's kind of a typical courthouse like Central and Western Mass that maybe some of our urban brethren are not as accustomed to. But I appreciate you coming out today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Attorney Colaflores.
Morning.
Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, counselors. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here for Ed Karcasinas. Respect, fairness, compassion. These are the attributes that I think of a district court judge, and I strongly believe that it embraces these qualities. Respect. I have no doubt that Ed will treat everyone who enters in his quorum with respect. In 2017, I was new to Worcester. I had transferred from Bristol County, and I wasn't very known yet. I had a jury trial with ADA Karcasinas, and despite being new and despite the adversarial nature of our job, Ed treated me as an equal, and he treated me with respect. And during that time, it was difficult as an attorney of color and as a woman. It can have many challenges in the courtroom that people are not able to really see or identify with. So that truly meant a lot to me that I was able to have a trial with him and have it done fairly. I have no doubt that he will treat other attorneys and clients who appear in front of him with this same respect. His calm demeanor make people feel seen and heard. And I have no doubt that also will apply to all the staff and the clerk's office and the probation and court officers that also will work with him. Ed's ability to listen is a great asset to have as a judge. It leads to active engagement and an understanding perspective of the whole scenario. It's often that public defenders like myself get sometimes criticized for zealously advocating for our clients to the best of our abilities. But Ed has always understood that. He has understood that we have a job to do. And he is someone who will hear both sides and will have the ability to make a fair decision. It is very rare that I have clients who comment on how nice a prosecutor has been to them. He is the only prosecutor that my clients have ever said that he is a stand-up guy. Care and compassion. Ed has the ability to understand where people come from. His time working with the recovery courts and just the courts alone, district and superior, where I've had cases, puts him into a position where he can understand our clients, their lives, the complexity of the issues that they face, whether it be race, substance use disorder, housing instability, mental illness, emerging adulthood in the adolescent brain, family disputes, and cultural differences. His ability to show empathy and understanding will make him a great judge, and I wholeheartedly recommend him for Associate Justice of the District Court.
Very much, Mr. Chairman.
Please, Councilor Kennedy.
I'll tell you this, it shows good judgment that he brought you in here. You know, somebody who's on the opposing side. And I think that the fact that you're coming from CPCS, and I believe I saw that you were you're in charge out
I'm the attorney in charge of the Public Defender Division, correct?
and that shows good judgment that he brought you in, and the things that means a lot, you know, because when I talked to him, one of the things we talked about was the fact that he was a career prosecutor. I'm gonna change the subject a little bit. You know what's going on with the bar advocates right now?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your feeling on that?
You know, I saw them standing outside yesterday at the State House from afar, from Worcester, and I was proud to see them up there. They deserve an increase in their hourly wage, $65 an hour for district court work, $85 for superior court, and 124 murder cases. With the cost of living here in Massachusetts, the bar advocates need that increase from the legislator. They are the cornerstone of our public defender system. They take 80%. So 20%, for those that don't know, come to the public side. So that is the attorneys that work and are full-time salary public defenders. But we can only take so much in terms of our capacity. They are in the courtrooms day after day with us, alongside of us, doing the same work, and I support their position.
I've never been a bar advocate. I support them as well. I'm a very big supporter of getting a pay increase. You know, and I talk to a lot of them, okay? Quite a bit. Being in court every day. And you know what the complaint that I'm hearing about with this action that they're taking? I hear a lot. They don't feel they're getting backed up by CPCS.
I think that's a shame that they feel that way when in fact there are.
Are you hearing that as well?
I am hearing that. And I think there are maybe things that they aren't seeing in terms of management meeting with them, having an open communication, but there is support for them. Yes, it's fully in support of this.
I don't think it was very strong in support of them. I thought it was kind of saying, well, yeah, we support them, but we're gonna cover everything. We're gonna take care of everything, so it doesn't matter what they do almost. That's the way I read it.
I know, and actually, I think you have to read it a couple of times, honestly, to really understand.
You shouldn't have to read it a couple of times. It should be clear, it should be concise, it should be strong, supporting the people who do the bulk of the work, okay? As for somebody who's the head of the Committee on Public Counsel Services. It shouldn't be ambiguous at all. You shouldn't have to read it twice.
When I say that you need to read it twice, it's because there are very thoughtfully outlined steps in order to both support the bar advocates and to be able to support the indigent clients here in Massachusetts, with people having the ability of their justice and their liberty being taken away.
But you know what? The answer to that is if you got somebody in the dock who doesn't have a lawyer because of this action, because they're not getting paid enough, You know what the judge has to do? Let them out. That's what the SJC said, right?
Well, there's a process in place, yes, of what they need to do and how long they need to wait if they have the ability to assign someone or not. CPCS is working both with the private counsel, with the public counsel, and also with the trial courts in order for us to have this position of being able to support an increase that they do deserve, while also being able to represent the clients of the Commonwealth.
As I said, I've never been a bar advocate. I've never worked for CPCS. I've always been a private defense lawyer, except for a short time as a prosecutor, but we don't talk about that. I'm a big supporter of those, and I gotta tell you, I'm really disappointed in CPCS and how they really haven't backed them up enough.
I hear what you're saying, and I can take that back to our management, but I think the bar advocates should know that across the state, CPCS does support them. And
What have they done what has CPCS done in terms of what goes on in this building to support their pay raise?
they have worked for many years now with the legislators.
They haven't got one in 20 years.
I think it's important that the legislature also be held accountable, as well as the trial courts and everyone that is involved in this. I think it's not just an.
My question, you just said, we've worked in this building with the legislature to get bar advocates a raise. They haven't got one in 20 years. So what have you done?
I can't personally answer.
I can answer with nothing,
I can tell you that.
because they have a raise in the last 20 years. CPCS lawyers, I have a lot of respect for them, a lot of my friends are in there, you know, they've gotten raises over the years, right?
Yes, they have. But again, looking at the picture as a whole, there is support for our bar advocates. We work closely with them. And
What have you done?
I can see your point, and I can see where you're coming from.
Not my point, just answer the question, what have you done as an organization to get them a pay raise in the last 20 years? Because if you did anything, they'd have one.
I think that is not just in the power of a group of individuals. I think, again, it comes down to what the legislator can do as well, how it moves through, and what the budget is. So I think there are
You know what the
no.
legislature listens to? They'll listen to the trial court a little bit, but they'll listen to you people, because you're in charge of the bar advocates, right? Basically,
The
you
agency.
supervise them, you decide who gets on the list, you decide who they're assigned.
I can only speak on behalf of where I'm in charge of, which is the Public Defender Division in the Worcester office.
I don't think they've done anything in the last 20 years to support them. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy. I'm gonna go to Councilor Dolan first, and then Councilor Adam.
If I may, I just want to say that I think that the CPCS staff attorneys, and the bar advocates are benefiting right now from what the bar advocates have done, particularly yesterday with the rally, the amount of press coverage there was, and it being so clear that the bar advocates have won in the court of public opinion because people value public defenders, whether they're a bar advocate or a CPCS staff attorney, they greatly value public defenders. And I started in 2004, and it was different then. And for a lot of folks who've been a public defender for a long time, they may not realize the extent to which public opinion about public defenders has changed. People respect us, people appreciate us, people value us, and it's really important for everyone to know that.
I agree.
Councilor Anella.
Just to follow up on Councilor Kennedy's point, you indicated that you're working with the legislature, I think you said 20 years.
I did not say that.
What did you say about 20 years?
I didn't say 20 years.
I said
Sir Kennedy is.
I said they hadn't got a raise in 20 years.
How long has your?
Just to clarify, I can only speak on my position as how I've known Mr. Karcasinas through the courts. I can't answer any questions regarding the history of the involvement. I don't have enough details on that, just to preface your question to me.
Do you have any knowledge as to how long your group has been working with the legislature? How many years in order to get these bar advocates raised?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I'm happy to connect with you after the meeting and get you to those numbers and provide you with some history that you're looking for. No, I don't. I don't.
know if it's been the last, okay, how about this year? You know, if they've gone to.
To be fair, it's not really her job to know these things,
Excuse me,
but it's not.
that's the question. Have they gone to the legislature this year?
They have worked with the legislator. I cannot give you the exact details of those. And again, I can provide you with that information. I'm here today to testify on behalf of 88 Karcasinas. I can't give you any more of those details, but I'm happy to connect with you for sure to give you those answers that you want, because I know that you're looking for them.
Yeah, no, I know you're here for him, but it's such an important issue.
It's an important
A lot
issue.
of advocates are, well, you're here, you're part of that organization there. Yeah, we don't have people like you who come before us, so now that we have someone, it's good to, you know, talk to these people, like yourself.
I think there should be more dialogue. I think there should be more communication, and I think that the questions that people have here today should be answered. And again, happy to connect you with them. And again, I support the bar advocates wholeheartedly, and I understand where they're coming from and the value of the work that they do for the Commonwealth.
It's not a question, it's the last statement. I know you don't know how long your group has been working with the legislature, how many years, but I would say they've been extremely ineffective. Where the bar advocates have not gotten a raise in 20 years. I don't do any bar advocate work, I just to let you know. But for 20 years, that tells me something about how effective or ineffective your group is in dealing with the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you for being here. I respectfully dissent from some of the tone and opinions being offered this morning, because I feel that there is one body that controls the pay, and it's the legislature. And in a moment when in the cultural zeitgeist is the importance of the rule of law, I would hope the legislature takes this moment to act. And I appreciate the actions of the bar advocates. And I appreciate the sensitive place that CPCS finds itself in this debate. To my knowledge, bar advocates are not allowed to organize. Do you know if that's true or not?
Can't speak on behalf of the bar advocates. I can say that for CPCS, there is, for our staff attorneys, we cannot organize according to a statute that is in the legislature, that the legislature would have to change.
I apologize for misstating
Staff
that.
attorneys to.
That sounds like it's also in the power of the legislature. Okay. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate you being here. And with that, I'll first query if there's any witnesses here in opposition to the nominee. There being none, the floor is yours if you'd like to offer us an introductory statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to, at this time, thank all of the councilors for your diligent efforts and time to accommodate me each time, and you all were very accessible, reached out at all sorts of different times, and I was glad to speak with all of you, and I appreciate your commitment and the dedication to your job and your role. I'd also like to thank the governor's counselor staff, Sonia and Ms. McCarthy. I'd also like to thank the governor and the lieutenant governor, obviously, for placing their faith in my nomination to the district court. I'd like to thank the legal counsel, Jesse Badu, probably one of his first hearings, I guess, and Derek Kesselheim, who's always been here for me, and Paige Scott Reed as well for when we started out in this journey. I'd also like to thank the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission, and obviously my family who are all here today, and friends that may be watching on the live stream. I was born in Worcester, the son of Francis and Edward Karcasinas. My father had owned a restaurant in the city for quite some time. Shortly after I was born, he left to be a liquor salesman. None of his culinary skills were handed down to me, as my wife and my children will attest. I attended Worcester Public Schools. I attended St. John's High School in Shrewsbury, and then went off to the University of Maine. When I was 19, when I was a sophomore, my father passed away, and I stayed at home with my mom. I have two older brothers who lived elsewhere. And there's about 10 years difference between my sister and I. So I was kind of, well, obviously I was the baby, but there was a pretty good spread. And so I was pretty much on my own going about my life and upbringing, but I had a great foundation that was put in place by my parents. I went to law school just down the street at the New England School of Law in Boston. And it was in April of 1992. I had just come back from one of my finals, you know, probably civil procedure or something where whole existence could be hanging in the balance because you didn't pass the class. I had received a call from Judge Paul Lecanto, who at the time was the actual presiding justice in the East Brookfield District Court, and he had asked if I wanted to be an intern with him for the summer, and I gladly accepted. And it was there in Dudley District Court, where we were sitting quite frequently, and in Worcester Central District Court, that I began to realize that there was more to the law than what was in the books, and that there was more to the law and how it affected people that came before the court, the community court. And it was quite an experience for me to be able to see that and to participate in that. In 1995, nearly 30 years ago, after a short stint as a law school textbook sales representative, I joined the district attorney's office on June 26th of 1995. After I was sworn in by John Conti, I was sent up to traffic court, courtroom 411 at the old courthouse. I had no idea what was going on or what I was doing. At lunch, I went down to the law library with my briefcase and I checked out MCLE's Guide to Motor Vehicle Offenses, and I started studying because I did not want to let down my family. I did not want to let down my friends. And I didn't want to let down the district attorney who had placed his faith in me to be an assistant district attorney. And that was the approach that I took throughout my career. 30 years, nearly 30 years of handling all cases, handling cases in the district and superior court, confronting challenges that came up in the administration of justice and in the administration of the office, building a family. Evan will be graduating tomorrow from UMass Boston with honors. With Julie, you know, it took some time, and we have a 9-year-old daughter and 2 7-year-old twins who, let's face it, this room is not big enough for their personalities or their behavior. But, you know, we faced many challenges as a family. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer when the children were all 3 under 3, and we fought and we persevered through that. So it's with that I've always been drawn to the district court. I've always felt that the district court was a place for innovation. It was a place where you could make changes for the better, and people who may only be there once, people that were there because of one bad decision, one bad choice. I've always sought to be engaged and involved in innovative programs and progress. I've been on the board of the Dismas House since 2002, a supportive reentry program for people that are coming out of prison, helping them to reintegrate into society. When I started, we had one location, a halfway house. Now we have multiple locations and a farm for individuals that are returning to society, helping them reintegrate to society, while also allowing society to reintegrate to their reentry to the community and to provide them with job skills, to provide them with opportunities. I've worked with Legendary Legacies, a group in Worcester that works with at-risk youth, people that are on the precipice or have been involved in gang violence. I've taken the time outside of court to meet with them, to go with actually one of Jen's predecessors. We would go to the storefront that they had on Main Street in Worcester, and we would educate them about the court system, put a face to the people that they saw in court. I haven't done it recently, but 10 or so years ago, when I could still play basketball, I'd go and try to play basketball with these guys and talk to them a little bit about the court system if I could breathe after we were done playing basketball. But I've always made it a point to interact with them. I actually wear one of their bracelets, so when I see one of the gentlemen in court, I can always just say them, I show them the bracelet and I tell them to stay legendary. And I think it's important for them to know that they have people in the courthouse that are supportive of them. I've worked with the Safe Exit Initiative to help women exit human trafficking, to help women exit the sex trade, because at the end of the day, they're not there by choice. They're there because of addiction or mental health. And so I had played an important role in establishing diversion programs for women that are involved in the sex trade, while also holding offenders accountable, providing them with educational programs. I've worked with the YWCA in helping women that have been affected by domestic violence. And so at the end of the day, I sit here before you, committed to being a justice of the district court. I feel that I have the temperament, the courage, and the convictions to be an excellent justice of the district court. My friends at the Dismas House and Legendary Legacies are on a trip to Europe this week to look at how some of their criminal justice programs work. And one of the things that they had posted was that no irrational desire for revenge. So that's something that I have always taken to heart when I craft sentencing recommendations and when I work in the as a prosecutor. And with that, I open the floor to any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will turn it over to the council, and we'll start with Councilor Tamisha Civil.
Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that you're here with your family, and thank you for sharing that personal story with in regards to your wife, because you know, I've been there before and I know how it can feel. My question to you is, what role do you believe a judge plays in the community?
I think a judge plays an important role in the community. You know, the district court theoretically is a community court. And I think it's important for members of the community that come before you to see someone that is dignified and treats them with respect. You know, and I think, you know, I believe there's probably a month of March or something that they dedicate to education and outreach, which is something that I do now with the DA's office. But I think it's an important function for people to understand and appreciate the role that the court or a judge plays in their community.
And, you know, I've worked for the DA's office, but in Suffolk County. And I know prosecutors work heavily with police officers. Are you police driven?
I'm not police driven, I'm justice driven. And as we've spoken, I've said no to police officers many times, not in a demeaning way or not that you can't do that, but no, this is what you need to do, or no, these charges are not appropriate. I've told police no, I've told them to go rewrite their search warrant. I told them they can't get a search warrant. So I'm not afraid and I don't shy away from telling police no.
Thank you for clarifying that. And my last question for you is, what positive or negative experience have you had throughout your professional or personal experience that has changed you to be a great candidate for judgeship?
So I've had a number of experiences, but when we were talking, I thought back to, I'd probably been in the DA's office only a couple of months, and I was out in the Winchendon District Court, and I was by myself, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and there was some people that had come back from a Jack and Jill shower, probably like at the Legion Post in Winchendon, and they had knocked over some mailboxes and some property, and Judge Hillman, whose son is now, I guess, the regional administrative justice. Judge Hillman was sitting there, he's chewing on his elastics, and he looked at me and he said, come on, Eddie, this is just one bad situation. It's just one thing, you know, we can get them to pay some restitution and we'll call it a day. And it's kind of set off a light bulb in my head, you know, meaning like, you know, we don't have to, you know, these people certainly shouldn't have a conviction for some type of felony, for vandalism. It's something that we could work out. They would be, you know, it's just one bad night at a Jack and Jill shower. It shouldn't be a mark on them for the rest of their life. And so I learned quite quickly from the bench that that's the type of attitude I should have, and that's how I should look at things.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that we had an opportunity to speak about your experience, and we did talk about how, you know, when my time working in the courtroom, sitting down and where you have a case of two siblings, you know, fighting, and then a judge, the prosecutor will ask for a stay away, no contact, but you know, it's a pushing or shoving kind of incident, and you know, we know that sometimes prosecutors could be a little harsh just to protect the victim. However, it's good that we have judges that can use their discretion to see when it's appropriate to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Dolan.
Thank you. It's good to see you. Ed, you and I both know we've had the pleasure of working together in Worcester Superior Court. I wish I had known then what I know now about you. You've just proved my basic hypothesis about the world, is that there are all kinds of wonderful people walking around and we just never know because we don't have the time to get to know them. So it's really been a pleasure to get to know you. And I want you to know that your counselor, Paul DiPaolo, is a big supporter of yours. Dennis McManus called me personally to tell me to vote for you, and I really appreciated his taking the time to do that. I wanted to ask you about, oh, and I want to thank you for the work that you've done with women in the sex trade. I share your view that anybody who does that for money needs better options. And they're doing it because they don't have better options. So when we think about punishing them or judging them, we need to make sure that we've given them a better path, which I believe they would take if they had. So I wanted to ask you about, we talked about 58As, which are often, as I've said before, wrongfully referred to as dangerous hearings. They're really pretrial detention hearings. Certainly as a district court judge, you will preside over many pretrial detention hearings. And I had asked you when we spoke about making sure that the defendant really does have the least restrictive alternative, and how you, as a career prosecutor, would evaluate whether someone poses a danger or not. Because I think sometimes things are seen as indicators of dangerousness that aren't, like tattoos. How will you look at that?
Well, that's, I guess first, and I'll start by, I don't, just because I'm a prosecutor, I'm not gonna be a rubber stamp for prosecutorial decisions. And in the 58A context, I think when we discussed it, obviously I'm gonna keep an open mind, and certainly I don't, people that, my son has he's got a fire, but he doesn't tattoo, he's not, I would never hold something like that against, anyone, but I would take the time to listen to all the evidence, to review the record, with an eye towards providing perhaps the least restrictive alternatives. What we didn't talk about, and I reflected on a little bit more, was when we first, in 2007, 2008, we were under a consent decree at the Worcester County House of Correction, and the number was 1,241, and we were often over that. We had to try to get under that. And so I'm very cognizant of the fact that, there are people in jail that might necessarily belong. Nor do I want, but I also want to make sure that the people who are in jail are the people that should be there, just not warehousing people. And one of the examples I did give you was sometimes in a drug trafficking case, people file a 58A. And okay, so we're going to hold that person for 4 months when I know that the drugs aren't going to be back within 6 months or a year. So I think it's disingenuous to sit as a judge and say, I'm going to hold someone without bail, knowing full well that the drugs aren't going to be back in time. So in a situation like that, I would be looking for less restrictive alternatives that would ensure public safety without just holding someone, for the sake of holding them.
So in a similar vein, moving to 209As, which are commonly referred to as restraining orders, same question. How do you determination as to whether or not an accusation is accurate or false? And this is, I have no data on this, but my sense of things, it's like probably 1 out of 20 have false accusations. It happens. It absolutely does happen. And I sympathize with judges who are put in a tough position, but how will you make that determination? What do you look for?
Thank you. And certainly there are, albeit rare, but one is too much if we're stuck with the stigma of this. And Counselor Civil and I had a discussion about due process. And I think this really goes to the heart and the essence of due process. And that would be to allow both parties to be fully and fairly heard. And if there was an opportunity, give them as much of an opportunity to be fully and fairly heard. Without dismissing one of the other parties or cutting someone off and, saying, I'm not going to issue this, but just certainly by listening to both sides and getting the best information and making the best decision you have based upon input from both parties.
Thank you. And I wanted to talk about, as we talked about when we met, and I thank you for taking the time to do that, Rule 14, which has gotten a lot of attention. It's a discovery rule, it's mandatory discovery, automatic discovery, anything, and basically anything. And people are talking about the new Rule 14, but it's not new. It's just that it's enumerated some of the things that prosecutors are required to turn over. And there was a recent story in the Globe saying that DAs are complaining because they think it's unduly burdensome. There's certain things that are outside their control. They're like the drug lab results that you were talking about with the drug case, that they don't have those. things that are in control of agencies, things that are in control of police departments. But at the same time, it is the rule. And by the way, it can be tough for defense counsel too. We've got 20 hours of body worn camera footage that you have to look at within a certain time period. It's a lot. And I asked you about making sure that Rule 14 is enforced because it's there for a reason. And you had some interesting comments. Can you share those with us?
Well, I think, with Rule 14, it's certainly a little bit of I don't want to say a sea change, but it's a difference, in terms of how we approach what we do and how we do it. The whole standard of evidence favorable to the defense. So there's a little bit of a learning curve. And as I mentioned, on these trainings, the rule really hasn't changed that much, but it has changed. But what hasn't changed is the, I don't want to say inability, but the reality that a lot of this material is not going to be available by the pretrial conference. So there needs to be a little bit of understanding that we haven't changed. So there needs to be a little bit of flexibility as we move forward as to how we implement it. But in situations where there's not discovery, I won't be afraid to hold people accountable for not supplying the discovery in a timely manner. When you mentioned the body cams, and there could be hours and hours, but it should still be readily available. And there should be procedures in place with the police departments and the district attorney's office to get that information. And it does represent a little bit of a workload increase for prosecutors. In district courts in Worcester, our people probably have about 300 cases at any given time. So there is a little bit of a workload challenge, but I think it will be manageable. And as it gets rolled out and people become more accustomed to it, it will be a little bit smoother than it is now.
You'd be willing to, as Warren, to issue an exclusionary order when
Certainly.
mandatory discovery is not turned over in a timely manner.
Yes.
That's what I need to know. And I just want to ask you one more thing. We talked about sentencing, and you had, particularly on the issue of probation, some interesting observations about how you can evaluate whether or not it's going to work. Can you share that with us?
So when going back to when I first started, I was in East Brookfield District Court, and I had spoken with John Bish and Jerry Bono, the Chief Probation Officer, and he would come up and he would ask for maybe 2 years probation. And they pulled me aside one day and said, "Hey, look, we've been doing this a long time. You can pretty much tell after about 6 months or so how someone's gonna fare on probation. You don't need to be asking for 2-3 years, because then we're just babysitting and, it's a file, and we don't need to do that." So I've always taken that to heart too. And I think you've seen how things change over the years. It's, there were 5- and 10-year probationary sentences coming out of Superior Court. When the research and the data shows that, 6 months, a year, that they can accomplish the goals of probation without being shackled to probation for an unnecessary amount of time.
For the questions, thank you.
Thank you so much, Counselor. Counselor Ionel.
Thank you very much. First of all, the council, Paul Powell, strong supporter. So I want you to know that. Excuse me. Also, my good friend, Circle of Council, Dennis McManus, called me. Again, another big supporter of yours. I like your resume. I think you're gonna be a great addition, excuse me, to the district court when your name comes before us, depending on your counselor, maybe today. Be more than happy to vote for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Counselor. Counselor Kennedy.
I don't really have a lot of questions for you because we spoke on the phone and you answered all my questions to my satisfaction. I guess the one question that I brought up with you that I have to ask you is, are you going to be able to take off that prosecutor's hat? You've been a career prosecutor.
Certainly, this is a question that you get asked at you get asked every step of it.
But it's a legitimate question. You know that we get judges on the bench that tend to be pro-prosecution, tend to be pro-defendant. And a lot of, I'm in court every day. I get a lot of times people saying to me, "Geez, what'd you put him on for? He's been a prosecutor his whole career." Okay. And by the way, I find that prosecutors a lot of times make the best judges for defendants. A lot of times. I think that people have that misconception that they're all gonna be prosecutors from the bench, but some are. Right?
Correct?
Yes.
How are you taking that hat off?
I think you take it off pretty easily, you know, it's a different role, I appreciate the role of the prosecutor, I appreciate the roles of the defense attorney, and once if I make it to the bench, I'm on the bench. Not a prosecutor, I'm just calling the balls and strikes and taking it as I see it, I'm not gonna put my finger on the scale either way.
Okay, good. Dennis McManus called me too, somebody I have a great deal of respect for. Council DePaulo was all excited when you got nominated and is very, very supportive. And Carmine Simonelli called me up, who's been my friend for 40+ years, and support. He called me last night, I didn't get back to him, he called me again this morning to make sure I knew how supportive he was of you. So hopefully I'm voting for you in about 15 minutes, but
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Congratulations on your nomination. Today's your day, but I do want to thank the Office of Legal Counsel, the Governor's Office of Legal Counsel. I think that it's very possible that our recently departed Chief Legal Counsel left because she was tired of hearing your name from me. Is that fair to say? Is that fair to say? Just a couple of really brief questions. Why all the St. John's judges? You know, I feel like seeing some Shrewsbury High School alum in a robe would be nice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. How long ago did you apply?
When did I first apply? I first applied in 2011.
Okay, and in this round of where we've landed here today, when was this application submitted?
When was this application was submitted? I believe in July. I want to say July 2023. Yes, July 21st, 2023 deadline.
So, and I ask because anyone who is enduring this hearing on YouTube, and it is a great hearing, but it's, you know, suffice to say, exposing themselves to counsel hearings, they should know that it takes a long time and that patience is a virtue, and that when the opportunity opens up and the situation is right, things go the right way. So all those applicants out there who maybe already are out of the pool, they should consider themselves worthy of applying again. And those who are in the pool should be patient and see how things play out, because even if they don't play out this time, they may in a future time. And then I'm not going to read the very long list of letters that were submitted in the process of your arriving here, but I am going to submit them for the official record of the Governor's Council. Suffice to say, as someone who navigates Worcester in this role and in a political role, every meaningful social service agency in the city is represented on this list of letters. And I'm especially grateful for your work at Dismas House. I know I visited and got a chance to learn about their programming when I rode around with some parole officers in Worcester, and the work is amazing. And the fact that you're attuned to the recovery community, you're attuned to the communities of survivors of domestic violence, survivors of the sex trade, your perspective is truly unmatched. You're an example of how in Worcester it's not a problem to be a career prosecutor. What we're looking for is good people who are engaged in the community and have justice in mind first. I look forward to voting for you. I hope that happens today. We want you and the nominee from this morning's hearing on the bench as soon as possible. Thank you for applying. And with that, if there's no further comments, close this hearing.
That was cool.
I know, I was gonna do it again. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Apologies for being late here, but at this time, I would now like to recognize Counselor Ianella for a prayer and pledge of allegiance.
We seek blessings on the task before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decision with impartiality. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of
United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Can I just say one thing? Thank you. You can sit down.
Thank you. Governor, you can sit down.
Now, I just want to say, I have been extremely fortunate to work with Valerie for so many years. I remember when I first came here, Valerie was here, and it's so funny. We've only had, since I've been here a few years, there's only been 3 people, I think, in that position. Louise Maloof, then George Cronin, and Valerie. All of them have been outstanding. And Valerie, I gotta tell you, you have been so helpful. Anytime I had a question, you did it with a smile. You are just a remarkable woman. You've been fantastic. And the best thing, you treated everybody the same. I'm sure you had some favorites, but you know what? You never show that. You're just such a good person, and I'm gonna miss you so much, and I'm sure the other members too.
Valerie, retirement means you don't come to work anymore. You have to stop coming.
We're so happy to see you here. I know we had the send off last week. It was so great to meet friends and family, all those brothers and sisters, amazing. And thank you for coming back this week. You're welcome here anytime. In this room or the next room, you are welcome anytime. And thank you for your incredible service, Valerie. I'd now like to recognize Counselor Civil for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant.
Second.
All in favor? Ayes have it. I now recognize Counselor Dolan for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries public and justices of the peace.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? The ayes have it. I recognize Counselor Kennedy for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Asha Z. White to the position of Associate Justice of the Superior Court.
It's with great pleasure I make that motion. I can tell you that his time on the district court, he's been just a superstar, not with everybody. The judges, the lawyers, everybody, and he'll continue to be one in Superior Court. So I'm very happy to make that motion.
All in favor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The vote, excuse me, my apologies, seconded by multiple counselors. Any further discussion? I'd now ask Valerie to call the roll.
Ms. Kennedy,
Yes.
Dr. DiPaolo.
Yes.
Civil,
Yes.
Dr. Dolan,
Yes.
and Ianella.
Yes.
5-0, the vote carries. Great. All right, we'll try this again. This is what happens when the LG goes away. It all falls to pot. Jesus. God. You know what she's doing today? Do you know what she's doing today, the LG?
I'm afraid to ask.
Something more fun than this?
It's beautiful. She's down at Arlington National Cemetery in a service for her dad. Her dad, she had a tough couple of years. She lost her sister, lost her brother, her dad, and Navy veteran. And so the family's arranged for a service today, which is really, really beautiful, which is why you're stuck with me and I'm screwing things up. But I'm now going to get back in order. You humor me. Let me sit in the big chair.
We have a special guest that just.
Oh, my goodness. Hey.
We miss you.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Paige. I recognize Counselor DiPaolo for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Patrick K. Burke to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court.
Please to offer that motion, Governor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Civil. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Valerie, would you call the roll?
Counselor DiPaolo,
Yes.
Counselor Civil,
Yes.
Counselor Dolan,
Yes.
Counselor Iredell,
Yes.
Counselor Kenny.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, the vote carries. Once again, I recognize Counselor DiPaolo for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Edward N. Karcasinas Jr. Yeah, Karcasinas Jr. Sorry, Ed, to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court.
Governor, I'm very pleased that Paige Scott Reed has joined us because it's the last time she'll ever hear me mention Attorney Karcasinas. Very proudly make that motion. Excellent nominee.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Counselor Kennedy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask Valerie to call the roll.
Counselor Civil,
Yes.
Counselor Dolan,
Yes.
Counselor Iredell,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor DiPaolo.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, the vote carries. And we have one new nomination. Angelo Gomez Jr. to the position of Parole Board Member. Counselor DiPaolo, do you have a date and time for the hearing?
I'm going to consult and let the council know when we schedule that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our business is now concluded.
Sorry.